Hey Voyagers, it's Mr. Munger. Today's April 1st in the year 2020. Hope everybody's doing well. And I can't wait till the day we get back to school. For right now, we're going to have to do our science lessons online. And this is science lesson 1. Ampere's here. I was thinking, how can we make her stand up and watch? So I made this box out of paper. Omar's here. He doesn't have a box. So I'm going to make him one. I was thinking, what's the best way to do that? So I took 5 squares, because boxes have 5 sides. Their top is open. And I folded them, taped them together. There's a box for Omar. So here's what you're going to be doing for this science lab. You're going to search and find as many 5 square shapes as you can. Cut them out and try to figure out which of those shapes can be boxed, like I just made a box for Omar. You're going to need a ruler, something to write with. I'm going to use a marker, but you can use pencil or pen. I'm just going to use a marker so you can see my lines better. So get those supplies, and then we'll come back for part 2 of this lesson. Okay, welcome back. I hope everybody has the supplies that you need. Basically, a ruler and something to write with. I'm going to use a Sharpie. You don't need to do that. I just want you to be able to see better what I'm doing. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a sheet of regular paper, 8.5 by 11, and you're going to make a grid. And I'll show you what it looks like when you're done. But basically, you're going to put your ruler, and we're measuring in inches. So you're going to put the 0 end at the top of the paper. And after you do that, you're going to make a dot every inch from top to bottom on the left side and then on the right side. Make sure 0 is at the end of the paper or at the top. After you do that, you're going to connect the dots. So you need to turn the ruler this way. Next, you need to make the lines go the other way. So what you're going to do for that is you're going to put the ruler this way. And starting on the left side of your paper, the 0 end at the side of your paper, you're going to put dots every inch going left to right. Do the same at the bottom. And then connect the top and bottom dots. And there's your grid. If you measure the squares, they're all 1 inch. So you need to make this. And actually, you might need more than 1 paper. If you have a scanner or copier, you can duplicate this or copy it. But I want you to make at least one of these using the ruler, because when we come back, we're going to be using the ruler a lot and a lot of different instruments when we finish up our astronomy book. And I want you to feel comfortable with a ruler and being able to hold it so you can trace dots and make straight lines. I'll let you do that, and then I'll come back to you with part 3 of this video. Welcome back to part 3. I hope you made your grid okay. Now that you made your grid, you're going to use that grid to find as many 5 square shapes as you can from the grid. And you're going to mark them with a pencil, pen, or marker. But here are the rules. First of all, and there's two rules. When you find your 5 square shape, the squares have to be touching at least on one side. And this is an example of one. This is the one I used to make Omar's house box at the beginning of the video. This one's a different 5 square because there's 5 squares and the squares are touching on at least one side. So these are two examples of 5 square shapes. These are examples of shapes you can't use. First of all, the squares have to be in line with each other on the lines of the grid. And the second rule is you can't have the squares touching on the corners. If you remember the game we played called NIM with the plastic squares, it was kind of like that when you had to place down 2 at a time. So these two are okay and these two are not okay. The next rule is if you can twist or rotate or flip a shape, it's not considered a different shape. And what you're going to look for is as many different shapes as you can. So these shapes are actually all the same shape. Let me show you what I mean. Here's 2 shapes. They're 5 squares. They follow the rules of the squares at least touching on one side. They look different, but in reality, watch. One shape fits right on the other when I flip it. So really, these are 2 of the same shape. And we're looking for as many different shapes as we can. So the second rule is if you can flip or turn a shape, it's still the same shape. Well, welcome back. Now you're going to use your grid to find as many 5 square shapes as you can, and you're going to mark them. However, you want to be careful where you mark them because you don't want to mark one right in the middle because you want to conserve your paper. So try to start on the corners first and then use as much of your graph paper or your grid paper as you can so you don't have to keep making extra sheets. So we already saw this one. It was the one that I built Omar's house box with. It was 5 squares. And the squares were touching on at least one side. I showed you another one. It was the one that was shaped like an L. That's a different one. So, after you find a shape, you need to cut it out. So I'm cutting out the shapes that I traced on the graph paper. There you go. Those are 2 examples of 2 different 5 square shapes. What I want you to think about now is, and you don't have to write this down, but how many of these shapes, different ones, do you think you can make using 5 squares and following the rules that I told you about? How many are there? 100? 50? 5? So take a moment and make a mental prediction. By now, hopefully you found some 5 square shapes. I want to tell you there's more than 5, but there's less than 20. How many can you find? Here are some examples. This shape, can you fold it and make a box? Sure you can. And this is where you need your tape. So by folding on the crease lines and using your tape, just like I did at the start of this video with the large pieces of paper, you can make a box. It's a miniature box, but it's still a cube with one side missing. So that shape I just showed you, you can make a box out of it. What about this one? Can you box it? Well, make sure you fold on the crease lines. Can you fold it and make a box? Let's see. And guess what? You can. If I were to tape this, you would see that this one does make a box without a top. So this shape, you can fold it and tape it and make a box. What about this one? That's another example of a 5 square. But if you fold on the crease lines, you'll see by folding it, there's no way to make a box with a top or without a top. It just doesn't work when you fold it. You can't make the same shape that you did here. So this shape would be no, you can't box it. Well, let's review what we've done so far. First, we made a piece of graph paper. It was 1 inch. We used a ruler to do that. Next, we marked as many 5 square shapes that we could find. And there were 2 rules. The squares had to be touching on one side. And if you can flip or rotate a shape, it's not really a different shape. And the objective of this lesson was trying to find as many different shapes, 5 square shapes, as you can. After you did that, then you were supposed to cut them out, cut the shapes out of the graph paper, on the lines, of course, and see if the shapes could be boxed. A box meaning a cube without a top. Some of them can, some of them can't. And then finally, you need to make a table or a chart and send this to me. It's your data. On this side, sketch. You don't need to use a ruler to do this, but freehand what the shape looked like. Well, there should be 5 squares because that was one of the rules of the shape. And then another column is, can the shape be boxed, yes or no? And we already said that one can be boxed. This one, I showed you there's no way. You can't make a box without a top on this shape. So the answer was no. Well, you need to keep listing as many shapes as you can find and then write yes or no if it can be boxed. And then when you're finished with that, you need to send that to me with a digital photo to my email address. Well, that concludes Science Lesson 1. I really do miss you all, and I hope I can see you soon in person. And I think that will happen soon enough. But for right now, at least for the next couple weeks, we will be doing our science lessons online. Well, take care, Voyagers, and I'll see you next time.